Well, hello everybody. It is Pride Month, and as a lot of you have probably seen, I've watched a lot of queer cinema this month amidst like watching new releases and a couple other things. I've watched a lot of queer films, and I'm trying to always watch more queer media because as a queer person myself, I think it's incredibly important to watch movies made by queer creators, queer directors, listen to queer music, all of those things. It's so important to support the community. And if you can't see, I have my Luca Guadagnino Suspiria t-shirt on today because as a lot of you out there might think that it's a crime that I haven't watched this movie yet, I had never seen Call Me By Your Name, and I consider Luca Guadagnino to be one of my favorite directors. I think Suspiria, Bones and All, and Challengers are three perfect films. I love all of them. I saw all of them in the theater when they were first released. I think they are all incredible pieces of filmmaking. This is obviously the film that really got Luca in the spotlight. It got nominated for multiple Academy Awards. People absolutely adore this movie. There's a lot of people who say that it's one of the greatest queer romances of all time, and I've just never seen it for some reason. I've never taken the time to sit down and watch the movie, and so with Luca being one of my favorite directors, I want to watch the film that he's kind of the most known for, and I'm finally going to talk about it today, so let's discuss Call Me By Your Name. Call Me By Your Name is directed by Luca Guadagnino. In 1980s Italy, a relationship begins between 17-year-old teenager Elio and the older adult man hired as his father's research assistant. So I was very excited to watch this movie because, as I said, Luca is one of my favorite directors. He has made some incredible movies throughout his career. And unfortunately, I did not really like this movie. I don't hate it. I don't think that it is terrible by any means. I just think this is one of those movies that has been hyped up to me for so long, and I don't really understand the hype. And I'll talk about that in detail when I break the movie down for you, and I'm excited to discuss it today. So, plot description, very simplistic. We're in Italy. It's the 1980s, and Elio, played by Timothée Chalamet, lives at home with his parents. He's currently like having this flirty kind of on again off again relationship with one of the girls in the community, and shortly after our introduction to him and his family, a car pulls up and we are introduced to Oliver, played by none other than Armie Hammer, unfortunately. And he comes into the house. He is a research assistant to Elio's father, and the two of them don't really interact much early on in the movie. They have brief conversations with one another, and throughout the film, we sort of see Elio's interest for Oliver grow over time. They have brief conversations with one another, and he is 17, and I believe Oliver is 24 in this film. And so Elio kind of fawns over him. He thinks that he's intellectual, and he's also kind of grappling with this relationship with this young woman that he's having at the same time. And finally, one day, two of them get alone together and they share a kiss, and the movie starts to portray their relationship over this summer that they spend together. And the entire film is us just seeing them during this summer vacation and having this relationship kind of behind everyone's back, because Oliver is worried if it gets back to the parents that it could be seen as this very inappropriate thing. And so the entire movie is us just examining and exploring their relationship. So as I said, unfortunately, I was not the biggest fan of this movie. I don't think it's bad by any means, but of all the films in Luca Guadagnino's catalog I've seen, this is my least favorite. I think, for starters, I'll start with all the positives. This movie is gorgeously shot. It is beautiful. There are so many moments in this that just stuck out to me immediately, that just Luca pays so much attention to detail, and just the beautiful framing of each shot, showcasing Italy in a way that it's not very difficult to make Italy look beautiful, but he does a phenomenal job in this movie, giving us so many different settings and environments that these characters are living in, which just makes for a really immersive world that is easy for you to introduce yourself into and to stay invested for the whole 2 hour and 20-minute experience of the film. The performances in this are exceptional, especially Timothée Chalamet. I think he is incredible for, I think he was in his early 20s when he did this role, and he is amazing in this. He speaks speaks multiple languages throughout the movie, just very naturally. He has to play piano. He does all of these different things. And it just shows why he is such an incredibly talented actor and is so popular now, because as young as he is, he's done so many amazing roles. Armie Hammer is fine. He's a freak. I'm not going to talk very much about him. You know what he's done. I don't really think he adds that much to this movie, and I think he honestly could have been replaced by anyone. But everyone else in this movie is phenomenal. I really appreciated all the performances in this, and I think they all attribute to creating really natural relationships between these characters that feel very believable. The issue that I have with this movie, my predominant issue, and the reason why I don't like it as much as other people do, is this relationship feels completely and totally inauthentic to me. There's nothing about it that feels charming or exciting or fun or lively. It feels like a bored older man that wanted to be with a younger man, honestly. Like, there was no moment in this that I was like, wow, the chemistry between these two characters is just off the charts. And being a queer person, I'm always looking for movies that showcase queer relationships. But the first 45 to 50 minutes of this movie, the characters like barely interact with one another, and it feels more, at least from my perspective, like the 17-year-old kid really fawning over this adult man. He's like super infatuated with him. He thinks he's very intelligent. He likes being around him. And as most of us did, I mean, I remember being a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid fawning over celebrities and people that were much older than me. It happens. And there's a lot of times where people, especially in this circumstance, Elio is a very intelligent kid. He's very well read. He's very talented musically. And so he thinks he is very much on the intellect level as the rest of these people around him. And so, like, if they built the spark of this relationship in a way that felt a lot more natural, I would be on board immediately. But it almost, like, the moment that Oliver kind of shifts into being interested in Elio's character, it almost just felt like he was bored and was just looking for something to do. And I'm fine with the movie going in that direction if it didn't try to paint the entire circumstance as an authentic romantic relationship. And there was never any moment of this movie that I felt like it was real. There were a lot of charming moments and a lot of cute moments that I was 100% on board. And I was like, oh yeah, I really like this. It's very charming. It works well. But I never felt that authenticity in their relationship through the entire runtime of the movie. And by the third act, when it's supposed to be this really devastating gut punch, I didn't feel that. If anything, honestly, I felt worse for Elio's character being a queer kid, presumably bisexual kid, who's coming to terms with his identity, that has been in this relationship and felt like it was real, but it was never going to work out in the first place. And they try to give you moments where they make Oliver's character feel more invested than others, but I just didn't feel it. I know there's a lot of people who have issue with this movie because of the age discrepancy, and there's a lot of people who complain about that, but I mean, it was the 1980s. It's a very different environment. It's also in a very different country where I believe the age of consent is very different. You have to take those things into effect whenever you're watching a movie. I mean, there's been a ton of movies over the years that have kind of explored relationships in a larger age gap, and I've discussed this in videos before, but like, movies have the capability to discuss taboo issues and subject matter that kind of pushes boundaries because it's not real life. And the thing is, the movie never once seems to be glorifying it or condoning, like, oh man, people should try to have these relationships with these larger age gaps. It's just like an isolated incident and storytelling in a movie. And so, like, for me, anytime it takes place in a film, it's like you have to really think about the fact that it's a movie. And so that doesn't bother me as much as it does other people. But I want the relationship to feel authentic if it is, or if this is a older man kind of just wanting to be with this young kid, showcase that a little bit better. And I don't know, like I said, it works for some people, obviously, but for me, it just never felt authentic. There was never a moment I was watching this movie that I was like, man, I'm really like swelling up in this relationship. It feels very real. It feels very natural. I just kept feeling like it was a product of circumstance. And that's unfortunate because, as I said, this is a movie laden with phenomenal performances that has some of the most exceptional cinematography. And I would be remiss to not talk about the incredible soundtrack with the original songs from Sufjan Stevens that are absolutely beautiful. Mystery of Love might be one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard in my life. It is so vulnerable. natural and real. Sufjan is an incredibly talented artist, and I've been listening to this soundtrack even after I watched the movie, and I didn't adore the movie by any means. But like I said, I love Luca Guadagnino, and this just really didn't work for me. And I'm gonna probably revisit it at some point in the future, because with a director like this, who I just adore so much, I want to love his entire body of work, and I hate that this movie didn't work for me. And as I said, it's not miserable. I enjoyed a lot of the experience. It's just nowhere near the caliber as the other films that he's made in his catalog. And I know a lot of people out there are going to disagree with me, but I wanted to come on here and voice my opinion. A lot of you guys have been like, I can't believe you've never seen this movie. I finally watched it, and I'm glad I've been able to share my thoughts. So if you've seen Call Me By Your Name, did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was entertaining in moments. I thought it was beautifully shot, but it unfortunately didn't work for me overall. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.